I was happy that when Christopher invited me to attend, because I thought that meant he saw me as one of GenSpace's success stories. So yeah, and he said he mentioned when he was talking to me about it, he said something about like your pathway to GenSpace, and I decided instead to refer to it as my GenSpace origin story because it sounds more like a superhero thing. So anyway, it all started when at 39 years old in Lansing, Michigan, I woke up one day and said, oh crap, I forgot I was going to go to Hollywood and become a big time Hollywood superstar. So off to Hollywood I went, and flash forward just a quick 20 years or so later, I was about a week or two away from my goal. I mean, by my own estimation, and then COVID. And in a way, I got off, it could have been worse. I'm here to tell the tale. I didn't lose anybody I care about. But my day job went away. Well, actually, first it went online, then it went away. And then the show I was on, Shameless, where I played lovable drunk Kermit, started on Showtime. Now it's on Netflix if anyone wants to check it out. That shut down too, along with all the rest of Hollywood. And the show did come back after, but in a season or two, it was done for good. So there I was, no day job, no acting job, and that's when I realized I don't have any friends. Because all my friends, and I think a lot of guys probably are like this, all my friends were work friends. I had my day job friends, I had my shameless friends. So I ended up having a lot of time on my hand while I was waiting for all those auditions that were going to pour in any moment and make me rich and famous. So I'm talking about this problem with my online therapist one day, and I said, I don't know what to do with myself. I don't have a job. I don't have, friends here. My friends are, my close friends are back in Michigan, and I just, feel at loose ends. And he said, have you ever considered going to a senior center? What? Now, he said a bunch of things afterwards. I didn't hear any of it because I was too busy going, a senior center? Me? But I'm so relatively young and vital and kind of sexy. But I wanted to be a good patient, so I said, after I saw his mouth stop, I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So I went home and I Googled senior centers, and some came up, and there were places that were, felt like they were too far away, or, I dismissed them for one reason or another. And then I saw GenSpace, and I recognized the name because I live not too far from the building on Wilshire. And if you've ever passed the building, it's one of these kind of buildings where you cannot walk by it, you cannot drive by it without going, what? What goes on there? So I already kind of knew about GenSpace, and I thought, well, okay, I'll go check it out. So I go, and I'm a little intrigued, kind of because of the building. If you want to draw people in, start with a funky, weird building, because that'll get people's attention. And I was starting to get a little bit intrigued, but I still, when I went in, I was a little bit disappointed that the staffer didn't come up to me and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, sir. This is a senior center. So, you did come back in 10 or 15 years, and we'd love to have you." Nope, there's none of that. No talk of my, senior sexiness or anything like that. But what they did do was they started showing me around the place. And I did not realize it until this whole thing started. I didn't realize I had a very dim view of what a senior center was. And I don't know why, because I'd never been in a senior center that I recall anyway. But I had this view, I imagined, kind of gray, darkish walls, a couple of rickety card tables, maybe a deck of cards, maybe some board games with half the pieces missing, a couple of Reader's Digest from 1978, this kind of thing. It was nothing like that, nothing like that at all. They take me first, they walk me into the dance studio. They have a dance studio where a Latin dance class was being taught. And then as they take me to the art room, I pass an area with a real long table where people were doing, I don't know, something with plants. I don't know anything about plants. Some kind of horticulture thing. And I was like, hey, how about that? And then over in the art room, they were doing a class in acrylic painting. And the other thing, for some reason, that I thought about with the Senior Center, I for some reason didn't think there'd be anybody there. Just a couple sad people kind of looking for something interesting to do. Place was jammed, packed. Classes were full. There were people in the common area. They were chatting. They were having lunch. There were people hanging out in the sunken garden outside. By the way, they have a sunken garden outside. The joint was jumping, as the kids say. No, I don't think the kids, I think the kids said that maybe around 1940 or so. But anyway, you get the idea. So flash forward again. I have been going to GenSpace now for, I think I'm kind of moving up on my 2-year anniversary. And I've gone from the guy who didn't want to admit he was old, didn't want to admit that he needed someplace to go, someplace to hang out and talk, have companionship and do things, to a guy that now sometimes people will say, Jim, do you live here at GenSpace? And I said, yeah, they give me a little cot under the pool table. Oh, by the way, they have a pool room. I keep forgetting things. And I've gone from that guy, who didn't want to admit he was old, didn't want to admit he needed, a place to go, to the guy who just is there a lot, to I teach a class now. Well, I co-teach a class. I don't want to take too much credit. It's called Social Dance. I teach line dancing. My friend Nick, who I also met at GenSpace, teaches salsa, and we have a great time. So I would say, if I were king of the world, like somebody we know seems to want to be, but enough about that. One thing I would put a GenSpace in every neighborhood across the country, because it's pretty great. Thank you.
So what you just saw is the result, but today we want to show you what makes that possible. At GenSpace, we really believe that the future of aging depends on both design and experience, and really rethinking that. And design and programming really need to work together in concert. So that's why I am honored today to be co-presenting with architect and nonprofit leader, Susi Stadler.
Thanks, Christopher, and thank you for being here in this wonderful, chilly San Diego. I'm from the sunny San Francisco Bay Area, so it was really a dream come true for me to be invited to work on the GenSpace. My passion, my lifelong passion as an architect in my practice in architecture is about inclusive and age-friendly design, and that means to make spaces comfortable, inviting, functional, beautiful for people of all ages and abilities. So what a great opportunity to do this, and what a great opportunity to do this in a building which is just beautiful, to put this extra layer on top of it.
So I don't have to tell people in this room because you're living it, but we are in the midst of a major demographic shift. By 2030, 61 million baby boomers will be 65 and older. It's the largest generation ever to reach this stage of life. And they're doing it with new expectations. I hear it every day from our members. They're looking for a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, and a place where they can continue to write their story. And most aging services programs that were created in the last century weren't designed to meet this moment. And these trends are affecting every generation. For a lot of people that are born today, it will be not a surprise if they live to be 100. So we have to meet this moment.
Yeah, and not surprisingly, the same is true for spaces which were specifically designed for older adults. They lack imagination. And they're just focused on functional decline, but not on the opportunities of growth and renewal, which are also part of the normal aging process. So how can we as architects and designers support this growth and renewal in later life, not just the changes which happen, which we all have to deal with, which are not that fun?
So GenSpace wouldn't be possible without the bold vision of philanthropist Wallis Annenberg. Wallis looked at the demographic data we've been talking about today, and she asked the question, what might a new model for the future of aging look like? So she reached out to the Stanford Center on Longevity, and the Annenberg Foundation actually embedded a PhD in their offices for over a year, really looking at the literature in gerontology and developmental psychology, and also putting together focus groups, bringing together a diverse group of multi-ethnic older adults throughout Los Angeles. And ultimately, that year of research helped us to develop the model for programming at GenSpace. And also through that collaboration, we met Susi.
Yes, and it really is this revolutionary, bold vision by Wallis Annenberg, which gave us this space, and the support and planning around it gave us the freedom to do things differently. And Wallis understood that changing how people experience aging really starts by changing what aging looks like. And that's what we're going to talk about today.
So that vision culminated in GenSpace, a modern community hub that's located in Los Angeles' Koreatown. It's one of the most diverse urban areas in the United States. The selection was very intentional because it is located near major transit lines. There is 2 bus stops that run by on Wilshire Boulevard. There's also a subway stop a couple of blocks away. Yes, LA does have a subway. And it also shares a campus with Wilshire Boulevard Temple and 2 elementary schools. And we offer programming on the 3rd floor that's above 2 major event spaces where civic leaders regularly join and present in spaces just like this. So there's a phenomenal opportunity for crossover for our members. Any given day that they're headed to GenSpace to join our programs, they might cross paths with someone of a different age or a different background, which we think is really awesome because the future of aging needs to be embedded in community.
Yeah, and we just heard from the previous speakers their vision about a mixed-use center of San Diego. So this is a small example of this, mixing uses, connecting generations this way. It combats social isolation, which is one of the big diseases in our society. But in addition, it brings vibrancy to this part of town because GenSpace, the building it's in, is an event space, and there are not events every day of the week. But with GenSpace and their programming, this neighborhood is becoming more and more vibrant.
So Wallis wanted to do more than find a beautiful building. She wanted to reimagine aging. So we really see that there's 3 ingredients that combine to make the magic of GenSpace. This awe-inspiring building that we've been talking about, but also smart, thoughtful, inclusive design for older adults. And then, of course, evidence-based programming that's all focused on longevity. So the evidence-based programming is where I come in. What that really means is we look to the research that's out there, look at solutions that have been implemented across the country and the world with older adults where they're seeing good results, and we test those out at GenSpace. We try to see what works. We get feedback, of course, from our members, but we also, whenever possible, try to use validated scales that can kind of track if there is an impact on something that we know that will help longevity. So measures of connection, measures of self-efficacy, and measures of physical fitness.
Yes, and the building design, the spatial design really reinforces that. And I am, the middle bar here, the smart interior design, but I also had the luck to work with and collaborate with the designers of the building, the architects of the building, OMA, which is like one of the star architects of the world. And it was a special challenge to integrate age-friendly design elements into their very tightly controlled sense of aesthetics and design, but we did it. And I'm really proud of the fact that this can become a role model for others.
Another thing that we think is really essential for a successful innovative model for aging services is co-creation, building with and not for, because the best programs are going to be interesting and relevant for older adults. That Stanford research identified that there was a stigma associated with a traditional senior center. I mean, you just heard from Jim kind of talking about his impressions of senior centers, and that's something that I hear from a lot of members that come to GenSpace for the first time. Maybe they visited another senior center around LA and they just didn't see themselves fitting in there. So that's why co-creation is key to this process. It's really just a conversation, but it's formal. A couple of times a month, we bring our members together, we share our ideas, we share our plans for what we may do in the next month, but I think the most exciting part is when they bring ideas to us, because that means that what we can implement is going to be relevant to them and it's going to keep them engaged over time.
Yes, and building with and not for is, of course, one of the big principles of inclusive and collaborative and design and co-creation. But the core is really in order to do this, you have to define what safety means. Because as we all know, as old adults, sometimes people just focus on keeping us safe, but that's pretty boring. And it doesn't really encompass the whole human being. Redesigning safety as connection, that means social connection, connection to your own body, to the bigger world. How can we design for that? Comfort, confidence first. Confidence that we don't have to fear, we don't have to struggle walking into the space. I don't have to be afraid walking up the stairs because ideally there would be a rail here, which there isn't. So that's part of confidence. And then comfort again, ease of use. That you're just sitting in the right chair. I don't know if these chairs are just the right chairs for you, but ideally they would be really comfortable for you. And last but not least, delight. Delight is such an important fact of age-friendly design, and it is very neglected. And it's the whole sensory experience of hearing, seeing, touching, smelling, tasting. And the amazing thing is that this kind of redefining of safety, it's not just about spatial design. As an architect, I am also as part of my nonprofit where we offer programs to low-income seniors to live longer and better in their homes. We work with them and we talk with them, and what they say, following the same principles which we just talked about, that's what they say, what they get out of this program. It's owning, what did you say? It helps me to come out more as an older person. That's a pretty substantial statement. And Ruby here is right in the middle of design thinking. I'm always learning something new. If one way doesn't work, try another way. That's design thinking. And then Victor talks about delight, a new word in his vocabulary. So the impact of redefining safety goes way beyond spatial design. It's really an emotional transformation.
Another thing that we really try to cultivate at GenSpace is inspiring a strength-based, what I call age-positive mindset. So we really train our staff members to encourage our members to try new things and harness their talents in ways that'll feel meaningful to them. Members, because of that, are regularly leading classes. They volunteer at the front desk and volunteer to lead tours. And ultimately, they're leaders in our space because really it's their space. And we want to make it feel like when anybody visits GenSpace, they are honoring older adults and feeling like aging is a possibility, right? Rather than something to have to deal with.
And a big part of it is really having choice and ownership. That's something most people fear most about aging, losing control, and that other people make decisions for them. So at GenSpace, there's this fantastic center space, which is open for grabs. And it's not programmed, there are no classrooms. It's an open space where you can hang with your friends, look at the beautiful sunken garden, walk around it. So these kind of central unprogrammed spaces which invite random connection, this is part of having ownership and having choice.
And speaking of the beautiful sunken garden that Susie mentioned and Jim mentioned too, I think sometimes you have to see it to understand what it is. But here in this image, you can really get an idea of the openness of GenSpace and how Tony in the foreground, who you all will meet in just a moment, and her friend Jessie are just having lunch, as Susie shared, but they have a view into a stretching program that's happening in the sunken garden. And on the right, they have a view to a horticultural program that's happening on. So I think part of being able to see that makes older adults a little bit more open to try something new, makes it seem a little bit more accessible, and provides opportunity for new discoveries. The other thing about it is it's an opportunity for new connections. So oftentimes a member may go up to one of their friends and say, hey, I saw you in that fitness class, how was it? So it really creates that sense of connection and camaraderie for the community as well.
Yes, and in addition, many people have loss of hearing, some degree of loss of hearing as they get older. So this transparency and light becomes even more important as another way to communicate with the world. Because if you are able to see activities throughout the space before you can actually hear people talk, then you get invited into this. So it's a very essential part of multisensory design.
And Susie mentioned this before, but I think some of the magic that happens at GenSpace really happens between the classes in these informal lounge spaces. Members come every day and they have lunch together, and they also just hang out between classes, and it's a really great opportunity to build community.
Yes, and again, coming back to chairs or seating, one of my favorite topics. Nobody likes the same chair. But so we also made sure that people have different seating options. And some of them, like these benches, for instance, are higher than a normal chair. And it's more comfortable for some people to sit down and get up from a higher chair than your regular 16 or 17-inch chair. So 1.5 inches makes a difference when somebody thinks about it. It's not a big deal, but it makes a big difference.
Another thing that sets GenSpace apart is the way that we structure our programs. They're really more like a university than like a typical senior. And that's because we believe that growth and connection happen over time. So members sign up each month and they commit to be part of a class for an entire month. Part of that is because we want what they're learning to sort of build over time. But the other benefit of that is they are in a cohort with a same group of older adults that they can build a relationship. So you don't come to GenSpace one time to paint a painting. You come to GenSpace to learn techniques of painting. So ultimately you can become a painter. Consistency has that cohort effect, and we really think that this model builds both knowledge, confidence, and community.
Yeah, and in order to do this, to come back and have this longer university-like classes, you have to really feel comfortable and confident in the space. And for instance, you see these beautiful, cutout openings in the building. They're dramatic, they're visually enticing, but at times when the afternoon sun comes in, they actually produce glare, which are uncomfortable for every eye, but especially for aging eyes. And we fought hard to actually have shades from floor to ceiling in the spaces so the light gets filtered in the afternoon. One addition which actually makes coming back possible.
Another big thing we think a lot about is challenging our members, ultimately because we want to help them to feel empowered. At GenSpace, our members aren't looking for what's easy, they're looking for something that's meaningful. So our programs are designed to stretch their minds, bodies, and souls just a little bit beyond their comfort zone. Because pushing beyond the comfort zone is where growth comes from. And I think that challenge can help to build resilience, especially as folks get older. There are natural things that can come up, but it helps to keep you sharp, strong, and connected as you get older.
Yes, and you get encouraged to challenge yourself right when you get into the building. You have a choice to either take the elevator or walk 107 steps up to Annenberg. So you build exercise into your daily routine. And we were lucky to have these beautiful stairs, which I really like climbing a mountain. We made them a little bit more safer with metal strips at the edge of each step, so you can visualize, see them easier when you step off, but basically built-in opportunity for exercise, because mobility is one of the proven contributors to healthy aging.
We mentioned before that GenSpace is located in Koreatown, which is a very urban, dense environment. So a lot of our members live in apartments. They may not have access to the outdoors. So we knew that nature had to be a part of the experience. So Wallis had the great idea of having horticultural programming be built into our model. I hear from members all the time that when they have a chance to get their hands dirty and plant, it helps them feel a little bit more connected to nature, but also has a calming and a grounding effect.
Yes, and the sunken garden has come up several times in our conversation. It was part of the original building, but it's now sort of the focal point, and people inhabit it. It's a green space, but it also brings this amazing light into the middle of the space. And from the sunken garden, you can walk up to a very spacious roof garden, and from there you see your city, the city of LA and the mountains beyond, really connecting you to more than just a building, but at the same time being proud that you're part of this GenSpace.
We also really value intergenerational connections at GenSpace. I mentioned the demographics before. Another interesting thing is, right now is the first time in history where every generation is about the same size. It used to be that there were more kids than there were older adults. Now every generation is the same, so ultimately the future of aging programs is going to have to be multi-generational. So we mentioned before that we share a campus with an elementary school. We have regular programming shared with them. Our members go up to their PE classes on the roof and they do Zumba. They also head down during the kids' recess and they garden in a raised garden bed that's really near the playground. We also work with local universities, USC and UCLA, to host interns. They help our members with technology, and they also develop and deliver programs that they teach to our members. So it's a great opportunity that benefits both sides. The students themselves get to practice, they get experience working with older adults, and then the members themselves get exposed to the latest research.
Yeah, and as architects, we didn't have to do anything to the space to attract younger people because it's obviously designed for young people. What we had to do is integrate age-friendly features that benefit really all users, because the reality is that people live on an expanded mental and physical spectrum. Everybody does. And so, which means that designing for older adults actually benefits all of us.
So Jim came to GenSpace before. I told you his story. He wasn't sure what he'd find, but he decided to take a class. He made friends, and ultimately, now he's leading a class of his own. And that kind of transformation is what we are hoping will happen for all of our members. We're really hoping that when they come to GenSpace, they have a spark of self-discovery, whether it's through creativity, through movement, or just being in community.
Yeah, I can simply say there's something very powerful of walking into a space where you feel valued, not just by its beauty, but also by its functionality.
Ultimately, what we're trying to do at GenSpace is elevate the experience with both joy and delight. So in addition to our regular programming that we have every day, we also take advantage of those shared spaces in the building we've been talking about. We have Hollywood screenings. We host DJ disco dance parties. We have rooftop concerts with partners like the Getty Museum and LACMA. We really want our members to feel like GenSpace is a special place that's totally different than a typical senior center where anything is possible.
Yes, and I just want to emphasize that delight is not just about parties. It should be part of every activity you do, also if it's about doing something which makes spending down easier for you, maybe. But I would like to add that what's happening often is that designers and architects don't design for the full person. They design because all of us feel at certain times of the day like 20 or 30, and other times of the day we feel like we're 90 years old. And many designers for age-friendly environments or inclusive environments only design for the 90-year-old. There's no delight in this. So let's design for the whole lifespan.
So at GenSpace, we're really focused on elevating the experience of aging, and honestly, that really starts with all of us. I honestly think that what we've been talking about today is a replicable model. It's something that could be brought to cities around the United States, maybe, dare I say, to San Diego one day if we find the right partners. And we're thrilled to be able to share this with you all. Wallis, who is our benefactor, I think is really leading this movement of reimagining aging. Just last year, she won the Presidential Medal of Freedom Award at 85. And she's just broken ground on the world's largest natural wildlife crossing over the 101 north of Los Angeles.